Get started over here. We have Matthew Bisceglia with Rubrik. He is the Director of Sales and Go-to-Market for incubating new security solutions for the company. The goal is to facilitate a rapid release of new capabilities that are aligned to solve customer challenges, differentiate Rubrik in the market, and drive ACV to $100 million plus within 18 months. Prior to Rubrik, Matt worked at MongoDB as an account executive and at an Internet of Things middleware company acquired by Google. He began his career at EMC in 2006. Also, I've been told to mention that everybody does need to get their passports stamped and turn in to the raffle drum by registration, and it is going to be a different passport each day. So today, this presentation is Protecting Your Data Estate with Rubrik Cyber Resilience. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, folks. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. We'll keep this short and sweet. You know, this is not going to be a pitch. It's going to be more of some points to ponder. Bob, I appreciate the intro. I'm a recovering sales guy. I actually now focused exclusively on product stuff. So I'm a product PM for some of our new security solutions. And I've had the pleasure over the past year or so now of working with a lot of our customers, prospective customers at the CISO CIO level, and notice a trend, notice a theme. And I felt like it was important to maybe share some of those learnings with y'all, give you some perspectives on ways that we can be more resilient. And so that's what the talk is going to be about today. It'll be maybe 15, 20 minutes. We'll breeze through it, get you on to the next thing. So thanks for coming by. So let's jump into it. I thought we'd start here. I don't know if you guys have read this book. It's a great book. I read it a couple weeks ago. Kelly wrote it, and it's chaos engineering from a security perspective. And she highlighted a couple things that I thought were really important for kind of kicking off this discussion. And the first is just that we have to, as cybersecurity operators, just embrace the fact that bad things are going to happen, right? A data breach is going to happen. Ransomware is going to happen. Assume breach, right? And I think our shift as an organization and as operators needs to move to resiliency. What if that happens? What do we do? And really, what the challenge with that for a lot of organizations is that it sort of bleeds outside of the traditional security work, right? And you have to start relying on partners in technology, whether that be in IT or other areas, to help fill that gap. And when we look at like the macro level of the industry in itself, we spend a lot of money on cybersecurity tools, right? Globally, it was $210 billion last year of spend, yet cyber attacks are still on a tear. We're still getting hit. So why is that? Why are we still paying ransom payments? Why are we down like Change Healthcare for weeks, months? Catastrophic multi-billion-dollar damage across the healthcare industry. Why does this keep happening? And I think because the focus has been on prevention and not on recovery. And I'm not arguing that we need to refocus all our efforts on specifically cyber recovery. But if we're not, as security teams, if we have zero introspection into that process and relying on other teams to do it, the chances might be that we'll find ourselves in a similar scenario as the Change Healthcare CEO here, or excuse me, the United Healthcare Group CEO. I wanted to share this too. This is really highlighted of Rubrik, but it's not a pitch or anything about us. It's about, we have this group, Zero Labs, and they're a third-party research firm within Rubrik. The goal of just trying to understand from the industries, where are some like glaring holes that we could help fix? And really just more thought leadership stuff. So Steve Stone, ex-Mandiant, leads this team. And these are some of the findings from the most recent study that they did. And what I found pretty interesting here is that 60% of security and IT leaders, non-customers, are not really all that confident in their ability to recover from an attack. And boards, about a third of them, and the E-staff, C-suite, that were part of that, the group that was interviewed, said that they also don't have confidence. So it's now no longer just an IT or security challenge, but really a board-level initiative. And to back that up even more, AWS, their CSO actually published an article in Fortune magazine recently. I think it was earlier this year. And he brought up a bunch of things that boards should be asking their security leaders. When I talk to CISOs and CIOs, they present to boards on a regular basis. What I found is that a lot of them don't have anybody who has any sort of technology background at all. So sort of educating boards on what to ask security leaders about reducing risk, reducing downtime, reducing operational disruption, exfiltration of data. They understand those concepts, but they don't understand how to solve for them. They don't know what to ask. And so these are some really basic questions that boards are now being trained on to ask. And shit rolls downhill, right? So if your boss is being asked, you're going to be asked to, how the hell do we prevent this from happening? What do I say? Help me prepare for this, right? And so I think it's important to start understanding that it's not just prevention and preventing risk, preventing exfiltration, which is extremely important and certainly needs to be focused on, but if you are hit, what do you do? And how do we answer these types of questions? So I'm going to answer some of that and kind of walk you through what I've seen and observed. So when we start talking about recovery, a lot of companies may think of, well, I have DLP that's preventing the exfiltration. I have tools like backup and recovery that can help me get data back. But a lot of those haven't been purpose-built for cyber incident. And the concept in the industry now of the cyber RTO. If you guys aren't familiar with RTO, it is an IT term. But it's recovery time objective. It's how much time is it going to take to get the data back, restore the applications, get users back and accessing that information. And in a traditional sense, RTO is simple, right? Your data centers are flooded. Well, if you have a DR site, you just simply recover that data. Last known good recovery. Go to yesterday and recover it all, and you're good. Somebody deletes a file, recover it. Somebody deletes a table, recover it. It's easy, right? But when you start to think of a cyber attack, the game has completely changed, right? You have to do a number of things before you can recover. If you just go to last known good recovery and recover it, you're going to recover either encrypted data, malware with it, you're going to reinfect yourself, all these problems arise. So the first thing you need to figure out is what the heck was hit? What was impacted by the attack? And we see time and time again, a lot of organizations don't have tools or a capability to do that. They leave it up to the forensics teams to go and determine what was the blast radius. And that can take a lot of time. The other factor is, what was the point of infection? What is the last known good recovery point? Where's the clean data that I can recover from? What users were compromised, right? How did they break in? Are they still in the environment? All these things are difficult to answer. Also, regulators are going to be breathing down your neck saying, I understand you're hit. What sensitive data is in scope? What critical data has been exfiltrated? So legal, HR, everyone else is going to be asking you internally and externally. The board's going to care about that. Is it a breach or is it just an incident, right? How do you know? How can you answer that quickly and efficiently? And then malware, where is it? We know the blast radius, we know what sensitive data was in scope, what was exfiltrated, but when I go to recover, I need a clean room to recover from, and I need to scan for malware. EDR, XDR tools aren't necessarily built for that. They're built for endpoint, perimeter, et cetera. How do you introspect the backups looking for that and find a way to identify that malware, quarantine it, so when you go to recover, you don't reinfect yourself? So these are all the things that we've seen organizations go through when they're hit by ransomware. They spend a lot of time in these areas. And it's what causes significant amount of downtime into weeks, sometimes even months. I know we all talk about change healthcare, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but that's a perfect example of an organization who didn't have these capabilities, backups are compromised, we're not able to do the forensics activities necessary to recover the data in an efficient manner, prolongated that downtime, and that's how we got in the situation that we're in. The other thing that I wanted to point out, again, going back to some of the studies at Zero Labs, again, I didn't highlight this earlier, but about 6,000 customers globally, non-Rubrik customers, were interviewed on this. What I found really interesting from this is they talk about how threat adversaries are really targeting backups, and then also how organizations, they all have backups, but they haven't really tested them. They don't even know, are they resilient? Can I recover from them? Aon, who's a partner of Rubrik's, and provide cyber insurance policies, but also services, have told us that organizations may have a copy of data, but it's not immutable. Immutability means the inability for anybody to go in and actually access the data, do damage to it, change, modify, delete the data itself. That can be done, right? Any threat adversary compromises an admin's credentials, goes into the backup system, can just simply delete it. Immutability prevents that from happening. Or secondary offsite copy, right? The primary system's compromised, you don't have a secondary offsite copy, something in the cloud, if you're on-prem, something at a secondary data center, something like that, don't have that. So all these things lead to failure, right? Failure of the data not even being able to be recovered in that graphic I pointed out to you earlier. And as I mentioned, cybersecurity, the threat adversaries, they're focused here. They know that if they compromise backups, they can go and ask for whatever they want because they know you can't recover. They know you're going to have significant amount of downtime. So they're targeting it. And the majority of time, they're highly successful. So the other factor that you have to consider as well is exfiltration. So it's not just destruction of data, but the exfiltration of data. And double extortion's on the rise as well. We've seen it. Microsoft has published in 2022, or since 2022, exfiltration attacks have doubled. And Aon has pointed out that about 12% increase in people paying a ransom when a data breach has occurred versus just an incident. So it's obviously something to be concerned about. It's what your boards care about, I'm sure. And that's why we see all of these things happening where downtime can be significant in weeks, months even. How do we get to this? How do we get it to be just a speed bump versus a car crash? How do we get it to be just a few days or even hours in some cases? What if we could do that? And so here's some of the things that we've observed and I think are great recommendations to help do that. The first thing is that traditionally it's 100% on IT. And IT may think they're good. They may not be thinking about a cyber incident. It's up to security teams to go educate them. And if they're adversarial, which in some organizations they are, where CIO, CISO are not partners, they actually see, want to switch it out? Yeah. Was it cutting out? No worries, man. All right. Quick mic change, you know? If that's the case where the teams may not work together, it's difficult to go up to your peers and say you're doing it wrong. So what I've seen work really well is tabletop exercises, right? Include them in this and go and compromise the system and show them, hey, we blew it up. We red team, blue teamed it, and it's a smoking crater. We can't recover this. It's gone, right? We have to maybe take changes. And some of those changes could be, as I brought it up earlier, hey, you can enable immutability on really any storage system, cloud, on-prem, doesn't matter. Turn that on. Get an air-gapped copy. In other words, remove a copy of, whether that's a secondary copy or on the first copy, get it out of the network so that we can't go and actually access that data. So you have an immutable air-gapped copy you can recover from, right? And just basic stuff. We talked about identity and just like MFA, two-factor authentication. Sometimes they don't even have these things turned on. You'd be surprised, right? It's crazy. So make sure that happens. Two, I've seen a bunch of great plans being built, but they haven't been shared with other parties. Sometimes IT has their own plan, security has their own plan. Everybody has their own like recovery plan, incident plan, whatever you want to call it. But it's not comprehensive, and it's not like they're not interconnected in any way. That's obviously a massive issue because we've seen incidences where boards will pay the ransom, but security and IT are working together with an incident response team trying to recover. They can do so efficiently, but the board has no clue, right? They're just working in two separate worlds because it's chaos. So sharing those plans and getting agreement across the board, from the board down to the person clicking the button, is extremely important. And then the other thing that I mentioned this earlier, a lot of times on boards, even in the C-suite, there's nobody outside of IT or security who is a champion of this. And so getting somebody who is maybe not technical, maybe has zero interest in this, but absolutely cares about resiliency, reducing operational disruption, getting them to be part of the process is extremely important. And I know this may be sort of foreign to people or something you may not, you feel like you can't influence in your organization, but I've seen many times, a couple weeks ago, we were talking with the VP of Cloud Security at a large retailer, take this action, and they got promoted very quickly because they were able to point out gaps and holes in the strategy for this organization, champion that at the highest levels of the organization, and show that they were on top of their game, right? And so just making people aware and pointing holes of risk and ensuring that you can provide operational resiliency is key. So just something to consider. These are some other questions. When you're in those rooms, ask your peers, ask other people, how are you answering these questions? We could have a whole nother talk on exfiltration, right? And how do we prevent compromised identities? What are we seeing around this space? But these are just some additional things to consider, to ask yourself, how are we preparing for that? And so that's that, folks. I'll just leave you with Rubrik. A lot of people may not be familiar with us. This is the only slide I have on them, on the company. We went public earlier in April, closing in on $1 billion of ARR over, this is a little out of date, but it's 6,500 customers globally. Some I know are here, so thank you for your partnership. But that's about us. If you're interested, we do have a booth. Come on by. We get some, I guess, interesting swag, and we'd love to chat with you more. But that's all I have. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you. Thanks for coming to the talk. Have a great rest of the conference.
Oh, we have a question.
Question. Let's do it. John, right? All right, John. What do you got? Oh, thanks, Bob.
Okay, so we have an event.
Yes.
And so we don't know what's been compromised, and what is the difference between a company with Rubrik and without Rubrik? How can they, make sure that they secure and have everything with that malware gone?
Got it. So you want me to pitch on Rubrik, huh?
Well, or you can take Rubrik out of the name. But
yeah. So I think the biggest thing that we've seen is that if in a recovery process you have to, the thing that takes a lot of time is when you're out of band processes. Typically, how this would work, if you wanted to identify indicators of compromise, what you would have to do is hopefully you had a backup system that wasn't compromised itself. If that's the case, great. Now you need to recover data that you may believe was caught up in the attack to a clean environment, and then take, Sentinel-1, CrowdStrike, et cetera, scan that as an endpoint, looking for the IOCs, the malware. You find it, you go to the next recovery point. That takes a long time. It's a manual process, right? It's coordination between multiple teams. It's running that scan, looking for all of that. What you need to do is have like an in-band process that you can scan the backups directly themselves in a massive batch job, finding where the malware exists and where it doesn't, right? If you do that and you cut that down significantly, what would take maybe days or weeks to do, and you could do it in hours, right? That reduces that cyber RTO significantly. So that's the goal, right? Is trying to find ways to reduce these manual processes and allow CrowdStrike access to that system and run a scan quickly and efficiently. We have, integrations with things like Mandiant threat feeds and stuff like that to do that analysis quickly. You're looking for organizations that can, or partners that can help you there. Does that help? Okay. Cool. Any other questions? How's the conference? Good? You guys enjoying it? Nice. All right, cool. Well, if you have anything, come on by. We're at, I think we're in that room 210, I want to say.
The
so come on
Grand
by.
Ballroom, I believe.
Yeah. Thank you all. Take care.